dismissed the sound. It was nothing, and he was glad to still be alone. He reached for his shaving brush and freshened up the soap on his face. With the practice born of many years, he began to scrape away with a cutthroat razor. He found it easier to use a cutthroat, as access to modern luxuries such as disposable razors was not something that could be relied on in times of war. War only supplied grief, waste, and ruin. He shook his head. So much history and cultural heritage had been destroyed. He felt, rather than heard, the noise again. The noise was too discreet to be innocent. A bus shifted, and the hairs on the back of his neck stood up. He looked around. Nothing. The razor was losing its edge. Abbas looked at it critically, wiped the soap away, and walked over to where he'd hung the razor strop. It was as he was scything his razor up and down that he saw a movement. An overlapping piece of canvas near the end of the trestle, on which the wash basin stood, twitched. He paused. The canvas had pulled aside enough for him to see a pair of eyes. Even though a dirty scarf obscured the lower part of the face, Abbas could see that the eyes were those of a young boy. The boy's eyes looked at him without blinking, as if time had frozen. There was a curious intensity to them that Abbas found disturbing. A moment later, a hand snaked around the edge of the canvas flap and reached out for the leather bag that normally held Abbas's shaving kit. Abbas dropped his razor, snatched the Makarov from his holster, and cocked it in one movement. He pointed the gun at the boy. "Ibn al-Kalb, son of a dog. Leave the bag alone." Rather disturbingly, the boy did not retract his arm. For a moment, no one moved. Then the boy spoke. It was only a single syllable. "Ab." Abbas knew that he should shoot the boy. He'd every right to. The boy was a thief. But how did the boy know his name? The boy continued to stare at him. Abbas found he could not bring himself to press the trigger. Then, as quick as a flash, the boy grabbed the leather case and disappeared. Abbas, still brandishing his pistol, roared with anger and ran out of the ablutions tent. He spun around on his feet, looking left and right, but could see no one. "Allah yakdik! May God take your soul," he growled and spat on the ground. Chelsea Thompson felt neither refreshed nor restored in optimism by her sleep. She stood on the perimeter track of the excavation site of Ebla and wanted to weep. Evidence of ruin and desecration was everywhere. She was part of a small group of international archaeologists who were helping the Syrian government restore order to one of their most significant archaeological sites, and it was a daunting task. A puff of wind stirred the headscarf she wore. At least the air was still warm, and had not yet surrendered to the chill of autumn. It had been a hot, dry summer. Many of the trees in the orchards that existed nearby were dead through lack of water and attentive husbandry. Only a few now struggled to keep hold of their green leaves. She glanced across the site with its sunken pits and low walls. The entire area had been pegged out by string lines into 6 by 6 meter squares. Her job was to photograph and record what lay in each square whenever any archaeological finds were discovered. No excavation work had been done at Ebla since 2011. This had left the site ripe for looting when the area came under the control of the Fatah opposition army that had occupied the area for many years. They were fighting troops loyal to the Ba'athist Syrian Arab Republic, led by President Bashar al-Assad. The locals had used this time to dig tunnels into the site, with the aim of finding and looting artifacts. There was not much evidence of mounds of dirt from the tunnels, because the villagers had even removed the soil after discovering it was suitable for making ceramic liners for their bread-baking ovens. In the process of digging, the locals had, rather remarkably, discovered a crypt full of human remains. These had been discarded by the robbers and left carelessly over the surface of the site. There was also evidence that they had unearthed a room that held collapsed shelves carrying clay tablets. Shattered pieces of tablets with cuneiform writing had been found in many of the grids marking out the site. Chelsea heard footsteps behind her. She turned and was not surprised to see Major General Abbas Shamon, the Syrian officer in charge of reopening the excavation. He was in a crisp army shirt and trousers. As usual, he was looking disdainful. She swallowed, summoned all the optimism she could find, and said, "Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you." Abbas gave an elaborate sniff and replied, "Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you as well."